Jill the Bookworm here, and welcome back to my channel. So it is now July, which means that the year is already halfway over, and you guys are probably wondering how my goals are doing for this year. Well, I'll tell you. So my goal for this year was to read 3 books a month, and so that means 36 books this year. And currently, I've met my goal. I am at 18 books this year. Yeah, so I've met my goal. I have read 18 books this year, which I'm super excited about. Like, I'm actually doing it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, and this month is going to be a crazy month for reading, as you well know already. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to give you just a bit of a review of the books that I've read and just some of the statistics and some of the statistics that I have for the books that I've read. So I have read 18 books, and I calculated it. I have read 5,589 pages so far this year. That is an average of 310.5 pages per book. Per book. Yes, I did do math for this video. So the longest book that I've read this year is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. This book was 579 pages long. I am currently working on its sequel, so stay tuned for that. The shortest book, according to Goodreads, that I've read this year is Henrietta and Eleanor, a contemporary reading of Jekyll and Hyde by Libby Spurrier. So it says in Goodreads that this book is only 3 pages. It is an audiobook, so that may be a little bit harder to kind of gauge like how many pages it is. But I mean, I'm just following what Goodreads is telling me. Goodreads tells me it's 3 pages, so my shortest book is 3 pages, which really brought down my average. So yeah, and as for my ratings, I also did an average of what I also averaged out all the ratings that I do for my books, and I realized I'm pretty harsh. My average rating is 3.42. Either I just haven't really enjoyed the books that I've read this year, or I'm like super harsh. Maybe I should like reevaluate myself. I don't know. 3.42, that seems a little low. But I still want to let you know like what my favorites and my least favorites are. So next I wanted to look at the genres of the books that I've been reading. Obviously some books have multiple genres. You can have a contemporary romance, you can have a classic adventure fiction, you can have a classic drama. So I just went on Goodreads and whatever mainly I felt that book was, that's what I labeled it as. That's what I've been doing throughout the entire year. So the genres that I saw the most of, the top 4, the top one was actually romance, which I was really surprised. I don't actually like reading romance, but I suppose I read a lot of it this year. Partially because you might remember back in February, I tried to challenge myself to read nothing but romance for that month. So I read 6 romances last year. I also read 3 classics, which makes sense. I do read a lot of classics. I also read 3 historical fictions, which I discovered last year was a newfound love. And I read 3 adventure fictions, which is really interesting because I don't generally like adventure fiction. But there you go. This is really surprising. Generally, I do a lot of horror and fantasy and stuff like that, but this was really enlightening to know that these were my top 4 genres. So I have chosen my top 3 books that I read this year and my bottom 3 books for this year. The top 3 was a little difficult because it was really, really hard to pick what that third one was going to be. In third place is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I've actually recently done a review on this. Feel free to check it out. I'll link it in the comments below. But I just really enjoyed listening to this book, and the reason why I chose this one as one of my top 3 is because of how invested and emotional I got into this story. Towards the end, I was just like on edge, like hoping that he would get his payback. And when a book captivates you like that, you just kind of have to put it in your top 3. I mean, that's really what like you read books for. So my second favorite book is a book that really also impacted me and made me think a lot, and just kind of, it's still a book that I still think about and that I still like think over, and I will probably go back and read it again, and that is Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I almost forgot his name for a second. I'm sorry, Neil. And this book just like, has magical realism. It was just so beautifully written, and I could not put this book down. It was just absolutely wonderful. So that one is my second favorite book for this year. And my favorite book for this year, and the only one that I've given a 5 out of 5 rating so far. Like I said, I'm very particular about my books, so the only one I've given a 5 out of 5 rating is The Green Mile by Stephen King. I literally had this book in my hand while I was moving. I could not put it down. It was absolutely riveting. I really, really enjoy King's writing, and the way he there's just the serialized novel of The Green Mile just made it so that you just wanted to keep reading it and keep reading it, and I could not put it down. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. So good job, King. I mean, that's why you're like the king of horror, right? So those are my top 3 books. Those are my 3 favorite books that I've read so far this year. But there are some books that were not so great. Some books that were kind of boring, or some books that I absolutely just despised. So the one that I liked the most out of the least favorite books was Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare. I'm really sorry, Will. I didn't really. I read this play back during the stay-at-home reading rush, and I think what I didn't like about it was that I am so used to Shakespeare's plays being a comedy, a tragedy, or like a comedy or a tragedy. But this one was like comedy and tragedy, like mixed. Like it was trying to be like, it was tragic, like the story was tragic, but he was trying to like be funny about it. I didn't really get it, and just, I guess, I mean, maybe that's me. That's just like my going into this play with those preconceptions. It just left a sour taste in my mouth. So my second to least favorite book for this year so far has been The Life and Adventures of Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. I know that a lot of people really revere this, and this is a classic. It inspired my favorite movie, Swiss Family Robinson. That was my favorite. It inspired the book that became the movie that inspired Swiss Family Robinson. However, so the reason why I didn't really like it is maybe the time period in which it was written. It had a lot of Christian undertones, and it preached a lot. It preached a lot about Christianity, and on top of that, I don't like how he treated his native friend. I didn't like a lot of things that I understand were part of the time. And so it's still a really decent classic. There's definitely a lot of really cool aspects about this book. I really liked how it described how he used tools and everything, but I just couldn't get over just honestly the character himself. He's very full of himself. I really didn't like Robinson Crusoe, so I didn't enjoy it. I got to check it off my list, but yeah, it's just not my cup of tea. So maybe it's somebody else's. And so for the worst book that I have read this year, and I ended up looking back and thinking back on it, I actually should have given it a lower rating than I actually did. So during my during the month of February, I did the challenge of read all romance novels, and I read The Magic of You by Joanna Lindsey. It's a very generic, I picked it out from Goodwill because it was a very generic paperback romance novel, steamy paperback romance novels. It was just, this is the worst book I've read this year, because it's all about this girl who's determined who just turned 18 or 17 or something like that, and she's determined to get this guy. I don't remember any of their names. That's how important it is to me. But throughout this entire novel, she's just throwing herself at him, and he's just doing everything he can to tell her no. I did not like that, and then at one point she gets herself kidnapped. It was just so bad. It was just bad story writing. The only thing that was interesting about any of this was the steamy romance scenes in it. But of course, if that's the only thing that's making your book good, then it's kind of a trashy novel anyways. So at the time, I gave The Magic of You a 2 out of 5. Looking back, I honestly should have given it a 1. I think the only reason why I didn't is because it was a pretty good ending. The ending was pretty good. The ending saved it from it being 1. But yeah, a lot of the story also, just another reason why I didn't like it, was because a lot of it referenced previous books. So it was obviously this book was made just for fans to continue and make money. I could tell that this was just a cash crop book. And it showed in the pairing and the thought process of the pairing. So yeah, these are my top 3 books for this year that I would highly, highly, highly recommend. And these are my least favorite books for this year that I think that you should avoid. Don't worth it. It's not worth it. Don't bother. So yeah, I'm feeling really good about the books that I'm reading this year. I'm feeling really good about the variety. I'm really liking how I'm branching out of my comfort zone. I actually didn't realize how much I've branched out of my comfort zone until I started actually cataloging it. I'm really happy. So here's to a super productive rest of the year. Yeah, I feel really confident that I'm going to be able to meet my goal of 35 books, especially with this upcoming month. All right, I will see you all very soon. Yeah, I definitely have a lot more content coming, so keep an eye out. And for my end of the video question, what is the best book that you've read for this year? Like the absolute one that you think is just the bomb, that you would highly, highly, highly recommend it. And what is your least favorite book for this year? One that you would absolutely tell everyone to steer clear from? Let me know in the comments below. All right, bookworms, and I will see you very soon. Bye!